Jenna Blake adjusted her badge for the third time that morning. First day at the precinct, and her stomach was already in knots. Not from fear, but from something else. Excitement. She'd made it. After years of training and sacrifice, she was finally a real cop. She walked through the station doors, expecting a partner with years of experience, maybe someone who'd test her limits. Instead, she was handed a leash. "Meet Buster," the sergeant said with a shrug. Old K9, pulled out of retirement. Budget cuts. "You'll be his handler now." Jenna blinked. "Wait, he's mine." The dog sat in the corner of the kennel room, scar over one eye, gray along his muzzle, stiff in the legs, but alert. Those deep brown eyes watched her without blinking. She knelt down. "Hey there, Buster. I guess we're partners now." Buster didn't move, just stared. They hit the streets together the next day, but things were odd. Buster was disciplined, sure, but it was like he wasn't fully there. Until they passed the old cemetery behind the station. He stopped. Ears up. Then came the bark. Loud. Sharp. Repeating. "Buster, what are you doing?" Jenna tugged the leash gently. "There's nothing there." But he didn't budge. Instead, he pulled toward a rusted gate, bark echoing through the still morning. A fellow officer passing by chuckled. "Get used to it. That mutt's been barking at that graveyard since the day they brought him back. No one knows why." Jenna tried again. "Buster, come on. Let's go." Reluctantly, he followed. But every day after that, same spot, same bark. Always the same. She started to notice a pattern. They'd walk past other alleys, abandoned buildings, quiet corners of the town, and nothing. No barking. No growl. But that cemetery? Every single time. One afternoon, Jenna decided to humor him. "Fine," she said, sighing. "Let's go see what all the fuss is about." Buster lunged forward like he'd been waiting for that invitation. Through the gate, down a crooked path, he led her past broken stones and tangled grass until he stopped near the edge. Then he started pawing at the ground, barking louder than ever. "Stop it," she whispered, glancing around. "You're gonna get us both in trouble." She tugged his leash gently, but Buster didn't move. His eyes were locked on a patch of dirt between two leaning headstones. He whined now, like he was pleading. "Why here?" she asked. "What is it about this place?" The wind picked up, brushing dry leaves across the cracked earth. Buster sat, still watching that same spot. Later that night, she brought it up to another officer during her shift break. "Do you know anything about that cemetery behind the station? Buster goes crazy there." The officer, an older guy named Hank, frowned. "Place has a history. Don't ask me the details, but I know there was a case, years ago. A girl vanished. Some say she was buried out there. They never found her." Jenna leaned forward. "And Buster was working back then. Different handler." The case went cold. "They retired him not long after." She swallowed. That couldn't be a coincidence. A dog like Buster didn't just bark at shadows. That night, back in her small apartment, Jenna lay in bed replaying everything. The barking. The cemetery. The missing girl. Could Buster be trying to tell her something? She sat up, heart racing. "You're not barking at ghosts," she whispered. "You remember something, don't you?" The next morning, as they neared the cemetery again, she didn't pull the leash. This time, she whispered, "Show me." Buster barked once and walked through the gate like he knew exactly where he was going. Jenna followed. She didn't know what they'd find. But something told her, whatever was buried out there wasn't just in the ground. It was in Buster's memory. And he wasn't going to stop barking, until someone finally listened. Jenna didn't even clip Buster's leash that morning. She opened the station gate and simply said, "Go." Without hesitation, Buster trotted straight toward the cemetery, tail stiff, nose twitching with purpose. Jenna followed, her boots crunching over fallen leaves, heart beating faster with every step. Through the rusted iron gate, they passed crooked headstones and tangled weeds. Buster didn't sniff or pause. He moved like he'd walked that path 100 times before. Then he stopped, right at the same spot he'd barked at all week. But this time, he didn't just bark. He pawed at the earth like he was trying to dig. Jenna crouched beside him. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. The grave marker leaning above them had no name, just a smoothed-out slab of weather-worn stone. Grass had grown over part of it. No flowers. No signs of anyone visiting. The wind picked up, and Buster's barking grew louder. Jenna felt her stomach twist. It wasn't just noise. It sounded desperate, like a cry. A voice startled her. Not again. She spun around. An older man in a green work coat stood behind her, rake in hand. His face looked like it had seen too much sun and too many years. Sorry, Jenna said, standing. He's been barking at this spot every day. Do you know anything about it? The man stared at Buster, then at the ground. Been workin' here 30 years. That dog ain't the first one to act strange around this grave. What do you mean? He took a step closer, lowering his voice. They call it the Forgotten Grave. No records. No name. Some folks say it's just a marker for old remains moved from another site. But me? I think it's more than that. Jenna felt a chill run down her spine. Why? Because bad things started happenin' after that stone showed up. Tools go missing. Dogs refuse to walk by. And every few years, someone asks questions, then disappears. Disappears. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Come on. The man's jaw tightened. There was a rookie once, back in the 90s. Fresh on the force. Said he was reopening a cold case tied to this place. 2 weeks later, gone. Transferred out overnight. No explanation. Buster let out a low growl, pawing harder at the dirt. What's your name? Jenna asked. Walt. Groundskeeper. She nodded. Listen, Walt. If there's something wrong here, I want to know. Buster isn't just barking for fun. Walt looked down at the dog, then back at her. You really want the truth, officer? I do. He hesitated. They say a girl vanished in 1985. Teenager. Never found. Rumor was she ran away. But there were whispers about an officer. Someone high up. She was last seen near this cemetery. Jenna's breath caught. Do you remember her name? No one ever said it out loud, Walt muttered. But I remember her sister. Came here every year. Sat right there. He pointed to a stone bench a few feet away. She stopped coming 10 years ago. A gust of wind blew through, rustling the trees like whispers. Jenna looked down at the patch of earth Buster was now laying beside, his head resting on his paws. She knelt again. You saw something, didn't you? She whispered to the dog. Back then. Buster didn't bark this time. He just stared at her, eyes deep with something she couldn't quite name, memory maybe. Pain. Jenna stood up slowly. Walt, if I came back tomorrow with a shovel, would anyone stop me? Walt gave her a long look, then shook his head. No one's watching that grave. Not anymore. Jenna nodded. She'd seen enough to know this wasn't random. And Buster, he was trying to dig up more than dirt. He was digging up truth. As they walked back toward the gate, Buster paused once, just to look back. The past wasn't buried. Not yet. Jenna barely slept that night. Her mind kept replaying Walt's words, the way Buster lay quietly by that grave, the missing girl from 1985. She didn't know what she'd find, but by sunrise, she was back at the cemetery with gloves, a flashlight, and a shovel. All right, boy, she whispered. Let's see what you've been trying to tell me. Buster stood beside her, silent now, like he knew this was the moment. Jenna knelt at the same spot he'd pawed and pushed the shovel into the earth. The soil was dry, stubborn, and thick with roots. It took nearly 30 minutes before she struck something that didn't belong. Clink. She paused. Her breath caught. She pushed the dirt aside with her gloved hands, revealing the edge of a rusted tin box. With her heart thudding, she lifted it out. The hinges resisted, but gave way with a soft crack. Inside was a small bundle, wrapped tight in a faded handkerchief, stained red. She unwrapped it slowly. A rusted gold locket, snapped at the chain. A scarf, blood-stained. And a small silver necklace, tangled with what looked like strands of long brown hair. Buster whined and lowered his head to the ground. Jenna's hands trembled. This wasn't garbage. This was evidence. She rushed back to the precinct, box in hand. The forensics team sealed it, logged it, and began immediate testing. Later that evening, the results came in. The objects were at least 35 to 40 years old. The hair, human. Female. The blood was too degraded to match without a reference sample. But something about the way the locket was broken, the scarf tied, someone tried to hide this. Jenna sat in the hallway, staring at the evidence log when the front desk phone rang. Dispatch waved her over. "There's someone here to see you," the woman said. She asked for the officer with the dog. Jenna walked to the waiting area. An elderly woman sat on the bench, hands folded in her lap, eyes full of storm. She looked up, slowly. "That dog," she said, voice shaking, "he was there when my sister disappeared." Jenna's legs froze. "Your sister?" "Anna," the woman whispered. "Anna Granger. She vanished in 1985. I was 16. She was 17. We lived 2 blocks from here." Jenna sat beside her. "I found something today. In the cemetery." The woman's eyes filled. "I used to take flowers there. Not to a grave, there wasn't one. But I'd sit on a bench, near the oldest stones. That's where I last saw her. She was scared that day. Said someone at the station was following her." "Someone at the station?" Jenna leaned in. "She never said who," the woman continued. "Just that she didn't feel safe. That she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to. The next morning, she was gone." "Do you remember a dog?" "A K9. The woman wiped her eyes. "Yes. A German shepherd. Just like him. He used to follow her when she walked past the station. She said he made her feel safe." Jenna looked down at Buster, who now sat by the woman's feet, resting his head gently on her shoe. She reached down and stroked his graying head. "I think he remembers," Jenna said quietly. "I used to wonder," the woman said, her voice cracking, "if he saw something. If he tried to tell someone." Jenna stood. "We're reopening the case. I don't care how old it is. Someone buried more than a chain out there. They buried the truth." The woman nodded. "Her name deserves to be spoken again. Even now." Jenna left the room shaken. A teenage girl, scared, vanished. A loyal dog silenced. And now, after all these years, Buster was barking again, so someone would finally listen. Back in the kennel, Buster curled up quietly, watching her from the shadows. Jenna knelt. "I believe you," she whispered. "We're not done." The box sat on her desk. The chain. The blood. The hair. It wasn't enough to close a case, but it was enough to open every locked door. And the next one was buried deeper. The next morning, Jenna stood in the hallway outside an old apartment door, clutching a file in one hand and Buster's leash in the other. She hesitated, then knocked twice. A few seconds passed before the door creaked open. A man in his 70s appeared, thin, with tired eyes and a limp. He looked at Buster and froze. "Sam Torres?" Jenna asked. He blinked. "That dog. I never thought I'd see him again. I'm Officer Jenna Blake. I believe you were Buster's original handler." Sam nodded slowly and opened the door wider. "Come in." Inside, the walls were lined with old photos, officers, dogs, station snapshots, frozen moments in time. Sam sank into his chair, his cane leaning beside him. Buster stood still, staring at him. After a moment, he walked over and rested his head on Sam's lap. Sam's voice cracked. "He remembers." "I think he remembers everything," Jenna said. "Especially what happened in 1985. Sam didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, "There was a girl. Anna. She used to walk by the station. Always smiled at Buster. One night, he came back from patrol barking like mad. Wouldn't stop. Dragged me toward the woods. But I was told not to follow. Let it go, they said. I didn't." "You investigated?" Jenna asked. "I tried. I went as far as I could. Found her scarf once, caught in some brush behind the cemetery. Turned it in. They said it was nothing. That she ran away." "Who told you to stop?" Jenna pressed. Sam's jaw tightened. "The chief back then. Had friends in high places. Said I was too new to make waves. A week later, I was reassigned. Buster was retired early. That wasn't normal." Jenna leaned forward. "Sam, we found a box. Buried near an unmarked grave. There was blood, a locket, hair, and Buster led me there." Sam looked down at the dog. "He's still trying to finish what we started." Jenna opened her notebook. "I want to follow him again. This time, all the way." Sam stood slowly. "Then let's do it." They drove back to the cemetery in silence. The air was heavy. Buster jumped out before Jenna could open the door. He trotted toward the gate, pausing just once to check they were behind him. Then he moved, not toward the grave, but beyond it. Through the trees, past the stone wall, into the woods. He knows this place like a map, Sam whispered. Every step, he remembers. Branches cracked underfoot. The woods grew darker, denser. But Buster didn't hesitate. He led them down an old path, barely visible now, swallowed by vines. After 10 minutes, he stopped. He began to dig. Jenna dropped to her knees and joined him. Sam stood back, watching. Within minutes, the dirt gave way to something pale, something solid. Jenna gasped. Sam, it's a bone. She brushed away more dirt, ribs, fragments, part of a jaw. Beside them, half buried under leaves, was a small rusted tin box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single brass key. What is this? Jenna whispered. Sam leaned in. Looks like a station storage key. We use them for old evidence lockers. Whose? I'd recognize that number anywhere. That belonged to Chief Rollins. Jenna stood, heart racing. The one who shut you down. Sam nodded. He retired with honors. Everyone said he was a hero. Jenna looked down at Buster, now sitting quietly beside the bones. He knew. He always knew. Back at the station, she locked the evidence in her drawer, but her thoughts were a storm. If that key opened Rollins' locker, what else had been hidden for decades? She turned to Buster. One more piece, huh? Just one more. Buster looked up at her and wagged his tail, just once. Jenna stood in front of the old storage locker in the basement, dust-covered, untouched, and labeled with a faded tag, Locker 12, R. Rollins. Her hands trembled slightly as she slid the brass key into the lock. It clicked. Inside, stale air rushed out, carrying the weight of secrets long buried. She pulled the door open slowly. Stacks of manila folders. Photos. Crumpled papers. A leather-bound notebook. Everything yellowed by time, but still intact. Sam stepped beside her, eyes scanning the contents. This is it, he whispered. This is what they didn't want anyone to see. Jenna grabbed the first folder. The name on it made her breath hitch, Anna Granger. She flipped it open. There were statements, scribbled notes, and one torn photo of a young girl smiling beside a tree. A note was paperclipped to the back. Claims officer made threats. Possibly unstable. Do not pursue. What the hell? Jenna muttered. Sam pointed. That's her. They pulled out a second folder, filled with internal memos. Conversations between Rollins and other senior officers. One line stood out. K9 alerted again today. Remove from case. Recommend early retirement of animal. Jenna felt her stomach twist. They silenced Buster on purpose. She found another photo, half-burned. Buster barking in front of a small tool shed. A blurry figure stood nearby. The caption read, Incident at Officer Harlan's shed. No follow-up. Harland, Jenna said, eyes narrowing. He was still on the force until a few years ago, right? Sam nodded slowly. He was Rollins' golden boy. They knew, Jenna said quietly. They all knew. Anna reported Harland. Buster tried to expose it. And instead of listening, they buried everything. Sam sat down heavily on the old bench behind them. I always wondered why they pushed me out so fast. Buster was punished because he did what none of us had the guts to do. He wouldn't stop. Tears welled in his eyes. He tried to save her. Jenna crouched next to Buster, who had followed them silently into the room. He rested his head on her knee as if he knew exactly what was inside that locker. You were trying to speak, she whispered. And they shut you down. She looked back at Sam. This changes everything. There's more, Sam said, pulling out the notebook. He opened it to the last page. If anyone finds this, know I tried to do the right thing. But the system was stronger. I'm sorry, Anna. It was Rollins' handwriting. Jenna exhaled, her hands shaking. This was never a runaway. It was a cover-up. A scared girl asked for help, and the people meant to protect her hid the truth. Sam nodded. And the only one who didn't turn away was on 4 legs. Buster let out a low whine and nudged Jenna's hand. She looked down at him. You were her voice. Even when no one listened. Back upstairs, Jenna filed the evidence and made the call. A cold case reopened. Names pulled. Files unsealed. As she hung up the phone, the weight of it all settled on her. Sam, she said, turning to him, you said Buster barked at a shed? He nodded. Harland had a tool shed on his property. Said it was just for hunting gear. Where is it now? Sam hesitated. He moved years ago. But the house? Still empty. Last I heard, the shed was never torn down. Jenna grabbed her keys. We're going. Sam looked at Buster. You ready to finish what we started, old friend? Buster stood up. No bark. No whine. Just purpose. And together, they walked toward the place where the last secret was waiting. The shed was the final thread, and it unraveled fast. Inside, beneath broken shelves and rotting floorboards, forensics found torn fabric, rusted restraints, and a match to Anna's DNA. The space had been sealed for decades, hidden behind layers of silence. But the truth didn't rot. It waited. The moment evidence hit the system, everything changed. News vans lined up outside the precinct within hours. Headlines screamed across every screen. Cold case cracked by retired K9, local hero dog exposes police cover-up. The town, once quiet and blind, now buzzed with questions that had no easy answers. Retired Officer Harland was arrested at a care home in a nearby town. The same man who once walked the halls with medals on his chest now sat in silence, face pale, hands shaking. He didn't fight it. Maybe he knew, after all this time, justice had finally caught up. At the station, Jenna watched the live footage with a tight chest. Buster sat beside her, head resting against her leg. She rubbed his ear gently. You did it, she whispered. You were the voice that never stopped. The next day, they returned to the cemetery. Anna's sister stood by the old marker, now replaced with a proper gravestone, name carved in soft script, Anna Granger. 1968 to 1985. Finally found. She placed a photo of them as girls at its base, her fingers trembling. She always loved sunflowers, the woman said, voice cracking. Said they looked like sunshine you could hold. Jenna placed a small bouquet of them beside the photo. Buster didn't bark this time. He simply sat beside the grave, ears forward, body still. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. Full of the things that had gone unsaid for 40 years. Full of grief. And peace. Jenna knelt beside him. You never gave up, did you? She whispered. Buster turned his head slightly, nose twitching in the breeze. Behind them, people began gathering, officers, townsfolk, reporters. But this wasn't about attention. It was about closure. The mayor stepped forward, holding a small plaque. In honor of Buster, the K9 who never stopped barking for justice, he said, voice shaking. May his loyalty remind us what we should have never forgotten. They placed the plaque by the new grave. The sun broke through the clouds for just a moment. Later that afternoon, back at the station, Jenna clipped Buster's leash on one final time. No more secrets, partner, she said. They walked through the front doors, not as officer and dog, not as rookie and retired veteran, but as something else entirely. Witnesses. Survivors. Heroes. That night, the town held a candlelight vigil. Soft lights flickered across the cemetery as people stood in silence, finally able to speak Anna's name without shame or fear. Buster sat quietly among them, no longer barking. He didn't need to. This time, the whole town had finally listened. If Buster's story moved you, share this video with someone who still believes in the power of truth, even when it's buried for decades. What would you have done if your dog kept barking at the same forgotten grave? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe animals have instincts that humans should never ignore, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories that reveal the bond between loyalty and justice. Because sometimes, the only voice left to speak the truth has 4 legs and never gives up.